We acknowledge the First Peoples and their traditional lands referred to as Treaty 6, 7, and 8 territories, and that the province of Alberta and all the people here are beneficiaries of these peace and friendship treaties. Treaties 6, 7, and 8, along with small areas of Treaties 4 and 10, encompass the traditional territories of numerous Western Canadian First Nations as well as the Métis people. Norquest College is dedicated to ensuring that the spirit of these treaties is honored and respected. Heeding the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, with funding from Alberta Advanced Education, the Rural Roots program is herein responding to the calls for education for reconciliation. Article 62, 2. To post-secondary institutions to educate teachers on how to integrate Indigenous knowledge and teaching into classrooms. Article 63, 2. Sharing information and best practices on teaching curriculum related to residential schools and Aboriginal history. Article 63, 3. Building student capacity for intercultural understanding, empathy, and mutual respect. Article 63, 4. Identifying teacher training needs relating to the above. We are grateful to the elders who, with open hearts, willingly shared the knowledge they keep for their peoples. On behalf of English language learners throughout the province of Alberta, we thank them for introducing newcomers among us to truth about identity, treaty, protocol and ceremony, residential schools, challenges to overcome, and guiding lights.
We just need to know what treaty is really about. My understanding of the treaty, it's a signing. It's a piece of paper that's an agreement between the government people and the Indigenous people of this land. It was based on the land. Any land that was not sold or occupied was called Crown land. So when they signed the treaty, they gave you two options. On one paper, they say if you signed here, you become a treaty Indian, you get a number, you're registered with the government, and you live on a reservation. If you sign on this other paper, it's called script. They will give you a section of land. You can own that land, but you can never live on a reserve, you don't get a treaty number, and you pay taxes. Numbered treaties in Canada originally came from the government. It started from 1 to up to 11. It started in the east and it worked its way west. I'll refer to Treaty 6, which is Central Alberta, was signed in 1876, but it was originally signed in Fort Carlton, Saskatchewan. A year later, 1877, is when Edmonton area signed the treaty. And Treaty 7, which is Southern Alberta, was signed also in 1877. In my community in the north, known as Driftbile Cree Nation, it was signed 20 years later, in 1899. Treaty 8 was signed 20 years later. Before they signed the treaty, the elders got together and they filled the pipe and they asked the government people, join us in the pipe ceremony. And we'll talk about the signing. And in that pipe ceremony, the elders were quite specific in the signing and what they were requesting. An example would be that they would attain the mines and minerals. That was the number one. Number two was education. Not just high school, but post-secondary education would be paid for. The third one was health and medical.
150 years ago, just imagine, there was no Europeans here, just Siksika people and other nations like the Cree and Stoney and Chippewa and Beaver, all the nations that are in Alberta. The first settlers that came from this, they followed the North Saskatchewan River because it was pretty deep. But what they didn't know is they were bringing with them all the diseases as Siksika people we never had to us. And we started dying off. Then from the south, same people that want to supply these coal miners with alcohol. When they came through Siksika territory, they found a market there. The alcohol was devastating to us. Most of the Siksika people got addicted to alcohol. And they started selling their bundles, their pipes, their knowledge to the white people. Because those whiskey traders, they sold them to the museum, to archaeologists, anthropologists and stuff. And if you're a Siksika and you never had a drink in your life, that's very addictive. You get a hangover and you want some more. Instead of paying one horse for one bottle, now it's become 2 horses. Or they come around and say, so how much for your bundle? I'll give you 1 bottle. And that's how we lost most of our artifacts. So our people shrunk. They kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. The reason why they came with the treaties is because that they're saying that, whoa, these people are dying like flies. What if we kill them all? What's the world gonna look at us? Let's try and save them. So we believe that's why they came up with the treaties. So if you read your treaty, free education, free medication and stuff, in exchange for we have to cede some of our land, our territory. Where I come from, the Blackfoot people, there's 4 groups of them. It's a Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Amskabi, Piikani. They're all Blackfoot-speaking people. And they lumped us in together with the Sutuna and the Stonies. And they call it Treaty 7. Treaty 7 is just an agreement of land management. You put a Sutuna here, and a Stony one here, and a Siksika. And we start talking. We won't understand each other. It's like putting a German, Japanese, and Italian talking to each other. We don't understand each other. But they lumped us together. But we were smart as Indigenous people. We created the sign language. That's how we communicated. Other treaties I can't speak for. I can't talk for the Cree. I can't talk for the Mi'kmaq. I can't talk for the Shuswap. They're all different nations.
We have no treaties in Iqaluit. We had our own land claim settlement. We had 2 land claim settlements. 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 2 land claim se In 1987, or the IRC evaluate regional corporations. So they built a empire for all the Inuvialuit to protect their land and hunting and language and cultures. And we fought for our land, and we have won it. So that way no companies can come on our land and destroy our land. It first started off as buying small companies so they could have a stable economy in the Northwest Territories where we come from. That way they can provide food brought into our communities by boats and trucks and that, which is cheaper than fly. We get royalties from where they buy oil fields and that from.
Those are Canadian acted rights of Parliament or laws. The Métis own their own land. They are not treaty land. The Métis have had a long relationship with the federal government and the provincial government. The Métis have worked with the provincial government on ensuring that the Métis are recognized and having title to the lands that they do have now, which are the Métis settlements. These lands are forever entrusted into the Métis people. And the Métis people have scrip claims, land entitlements, and that gave them homesteading rights. The particular lands that were given were actually where Métis families had already been living. The government, with the Crown, decided that these locations were part of their heritage. From Manitoba west, their treaty commissions and the government usually separated them, but they put them next door to each other. In Manitoba, they put a Métis settlement right next door to a reservation because the families were interconnected. And in Canada, Alberta is the only unique province that has a specific land base for Métis people. In 1938, King George he enacted the Alberta government and to set aside specific lands for Métis people. Alberta has taken it one step forward. So the Alberta government has guaranteed that the settlements would evolve into municipalities so that they could be self-governing. The 8 settlements are within what we call northern Alberta. There are no settlements to the south of Edmonton, and the burial forest where the Métis' main prior incomes were from hunting and trapping. This seemed to make more sense to have these home bases in that area. The settlements go all the way up to a place called Paddle Prairie, which is just south of High Level. They're not run by any government other than the Métis people themselves.
So eventually, there will be town sites in every settlement, and they will govern themselves like a mayor and such.
This is Treaty 6. The treaties were written as long as the rivers flow. You know the actual wording is as long as the water flows. And that means as long as a child is born. Those treaties hold. They said you can only have about 6 inches of the soil as what you can plow to seed. So what happened in Fort McMurray then? The tar sands. There's always been tar sands out on the Athabasca, and that was used as medicine, like for putting the birch bark together, for whatever. And for fire, it was used, yeah. It was not dug up for oil, because it's not meant for that, is what the elders were saying. And when you look, there's not one woman that signed the treaty, not one. And where's the other 50% then?